Here's a simple question. Who would you rather have negotiating with China, Japan, Mexico, any other, Trump or Bush?
Donald Trump speaking to tens of thousands of supporters in Mobile, Alabama this week, the largest gathering we think so far of the presidential campaign. It's time now for our Sunday group. Kimberley Strassel from the Wall Street Journal, Peter Baker, who covers the White House for the New York Times, Robert Costa of the Washington Post, and Fox News political analyst Juan Williams. All right, Donald Trump. Juan, looks like he's sticking around.
I think he's going to be around. I was impressed. I think Bob was at the event in Alabama, so we'll hear more in a moment. But it seems to me that Trump is the surprise that keeps on giving in this summer of Trump. I thought he'd be gone by now, but he has resisted this time and again. And at this moment, you have Jeb Bush having to react to Donald Trump in a way that, to me, is very surprising. Saying Trump is not a conservative, trying to appeal to conservatives, but clearly Jeb Bush worried that the donor class is getting anxious at this point at his failure to engage Trump or slow Trump.
Well, Bob, I'm interested because you were there. Listen, I knew things were different when he threw NASCAR under the bus in Alabama, Mobile, Alabama, and got cheers for doing it. These people siding with Trump over NASCAR in Mobile?
It was quite a moment to be there on a hot, sweaty Friday night in Mobile, Alabama. Trump comes out to Sweet Home, Alabama. The crowd roars. This is not just a political moment, it was a cultural moment. But there was a significant political thing that happened. Senator Jeff Sessions of Alabama, a real favorite of the hard right, the immigration border hawks, he came out and put on a Make America Great Again hat. Didn't endorse Trump, but to have a sitting U.S. senator there with the businessman says a lot.
Yeah, an extremely popular one who helped him write his immigration plan, helped him draft it. Peter, what do you make of what the rest of the GOP field needs to do with this? I mean, clearly there's something being tapped into that's anti-Washington, anti-establishment. We see with Trump, Dr. Carson, Carly Fiorina, outside non-politician people moving up in the polls. How do others like, Juan mentioned Jeb Bush, harness that?
Well, you're left to two choices, right? Either you run with it, like Ted Cruz is trying to do, trying to tap into some of the same anger and disaffection with Washington, or you try to run against it, as Jeb Bush is trying to do, saying this is not the solution. You can't turn over the government to a person just because you like his hat. And right now, frankly, neither one is working for either of these camps. And as Trump, absorbs all the oxygen in the room, whether it lasts or not, I don't know. We've seen multiple obituaries written so far. None of them have turned out to be right. But it's a long way between now and Iowa.
It is. And Kimberly, I mean, he's polling well in Iowa, which is a place where we've all spent a lot of time. And voters are very sophisticated there. They want to talk to you and shake your hand and grill you before they cast a caucus vote for you. Do you think months from now, they're going to show up those caucuses in the cold of winter and cast their votes for him?
Well, what's interesting about Trump is he's now acting like a very serious candidate. He is out there on the ground and he's putting a lot of money into this. He's got a lot of paid people on his staff, and he does seem to be more in it to win. Although if we go back 4 years, who was leading all of the polls for the Republicans? Herman Cain. There is always, especially in Republican primaries, a big interest in people who are new on the scene, who promise to go in and bust things up. And this is not anything specific to Trump, but I think we have to be careful about where the electorate might be in its mind 6 months from now when they begin to focus. It's also summertime. So people are going to get back, be a little bit more thoughtful, I think, about some of the issues. And that's why Bush is doing what he's doing, is he's attempting very much to try to make the real contrast between his policy positions and Trump's, and sometimes that gets lost in the back and forth.
You know what's interesting to me is to hear Jeb Bush say about Trump, he's not a conservative, he's not electable, not serious person, which I think is when I listen to you, Kimberly, you're saying come the end of summer, maybe we'll get over this summer fling in terms of the voters' affection for Trump. But then to hear Trump shoot back at Bush and say, gosh, this was in New Hampshire this week. Oh, gosh, he's got a couple people over there. It's very sleepy. It's not exciting like at my event, which is obvious. But to secondly say, you know what, Bush is a low-energy guy. If you want to change in Washington, he's not the guy to go to. I find this is so interesting.
Well, I mean, that message is resonating with, obviously, thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, polling and in person. I want to make sure that we get to the other side of the ticket because we've got Hillary Clinton, and as we discussed, the mounting issues that she's constantly being pulled off message to now have to talk about this email situation. She's a little frustrated with her own Ed Henry pushing her in Vegas this week. Here's what happened at the end of that press conference.
Thank you all. Thank you all very much.
Is this an indication that this issue isn't going to go away for the remainder of your campaign?
Nobody talked to me about it, other than you guys.
Bob, nobody's talking to her about it but us.
People are talking about it. When I was in Iowa, New Hampshire, people are bringing it up. It's a cloud over her campaign. But Vice President Biden is still not in the race. Senator Warren has declined to run. She's still by far the front runner. Bernie Sanders is coming up on the left, but that's more because of his progressive values, not so much because he's countering her on the email controversy. And so when you really just look objectively at her strengths across the country, they remain.
But Peter, her numbers are definitely taking a hit. I mean, we showed her in contrast to Biden. When you talk about trustworthiness, 58% of people in our most recent poll think that she knowingly lied about this email server. And when you break that down by party, 67% of independents think that she lied. And that's obviously the group everybody wants in 2016.
Yeah, I think what it does is it reminds people of some of the parts of the 90s that they didn't particularly like about the Clinton era. And she had done a very good job, I think, as Secretary of State, of sort of moving past that, of redefining herself as a formidable figure on the world stage, as somebody who was credible and to both parties in a lot of ways. And this kind of brings back some of the circus that always seemed to surround that last White House, and it does cut at credibility. The details kind of, you saw with your interviews, I mean, get pretty arcane at times, right? And it may not matter in the end, but it does sort of kind of bring down the sort of lofty place that she had been in.
If you're having to explain. And I mean, Kimberly, how worried do you think her camp is at this point about a potential Biden candidacy? Because I mean, it sounds like there's an organization ready to go should he decide to do it, and he's taking some very serious meetings.
Based on the conversation you had with the Congresswoman, I'd say they're very worried about this. But as to what Bob said, I'm not sure. She does have strength everywhere, and this is why they're concerned. What she has always had is inevitability. This is what they built up, and it's why she is where she is at the moment, because she told the party for the last 4 years, I'm your only ticket to the White House. But she's not necessarily a gifted politician.
I just meant in terms of being a historic candidate. When you meet base Democratic voters, they still see her as a fresh face because she would be a historic candidate, the first female candidate, President of the United States. But you're right, there are a lot of vulnerabilities out there, but that core appeal still remains.
The question is, if Biden gets in, and this was the thing that was interesting about your interview with the draft Biden things, does he get in to win? Because right now, Bernie Sanders and Martin O'Malley, they're dancing around Hillary Clinton's ethics problems. And I'm waiting for someone to get in who actually goes after her on that. And I think that would actually be a big problem.
I think the problem is for the vice president is, I think at this point, he'd be an alternative to Sanders and the left, a more credible challenge. But really, is he a challenge to Hillary Clinton? Democrats are not moving away in the polls from Hillary Clinton.
We'll see if Elizabeth Warren's endorsement or alignment with anybody makes a difference. Big meeting yesterday. All right, stick around, panel.